open the meeting of the budget meeting recess, the recess meeting of, what, the last Monday? 4th? What? 3rd? Okay. Of the June 3rd meeting. This time I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Suley.
Commissioner Godwin's going to have our invocation.
Yes, let us pray. Most holy and all wise God, we thank you for this day you have given us. Thank you for the wake-up call, that we give you glory and honor. Now as we come, Lord, we ask that you continue to bless us and guide us. Give us the wisdom that we need today. And then, God, all that we do is because of the wisdom that you have given us. Now bless each one here and bless us to do what you would have us to do, Lord, to be able to do the things right in thy sight. We love you and we thank you and we give you glory and honor. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. All right, at this time, we will open the floor for discussion on the budget. Anybody got any thoughts or comments at this particular point?
Do you have anything on the Sheriff's Department of, I was looking over and saw that we had a large increase on the doctor side. Am I right on that? Was there an increase?
The detention center,
Yes.
Position, yes. I think that went up $50,000, from $275 to $325.
Did it give you a reason for it? I know we're showing a decrease in,
I mean, it's basically, it was just, I think the doctor wanted an increase, and he does overall, what I understand, saves us money, so I don't know if he's had an increase in the last 2 or 3 years on that.
there's no way to use our health department in that service.
Unfortunately, no, we don't have enough. I know, you're right. I mean, it would be nice if we actually had a position employed at the health department, which we, of course, we don't. That would be a big cost, but that would probably be the only way that it would make sense, is if we actually had a doctor employed at the health department, other than the contract doctors, the contract doctor they use, which only work in the detention center. I think it was a chore just to get a doctor for the detention center when we finally got the one we got, and he's the only one we ever had. We never had another doctor, and didn't have a doctor before that.
That was one of those things that kind of caught my eye when I was looking over a few things, and I was like, wow, it's a pretty good little increase.
It was, yeah, 50,000 was a lot.
Mr. Chairman, David's got a couple of supplemental sheets that may have, that do some summarizing that may be of help as you sit here and ponder what you want to discuss.
If
I
you
give
would,
them the comparison and the one that shows the variance.
that'd be good.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. We'll take a minute to look over this.
And go ahead and kind of explain to you what you have. The first sheet I handed out is budget summary information related to how the fiscal year 23-24 board approved budget and net tax support compares to the fiscal year 24-25 recommended budget. The two columns to, at the end there on the right, increase, decrease in net tax support, and the percentage increase and decrease in net tax support for each department. The second sheet is your fiscal year 24-25 recommended budget, the expenditures recommended, the net tax support, and the percent of net tax support for each department.
I have one question.
Okay,
The mental health administration, where's that money going?
That money goes to the, what used to be East Point, which is now Trillium. It helps pay for some services here in the county. It also helps pay for the sheriff's department to transport patients that have a involuntary commitment or something like that to services.
So they're just paid on a need basis, right?
I know they get all that money every year. They're providing, to provide services in the county.
In your spare time, could you give me a breakdown of that? Because I want to sit on into mental health services for Sampson County, because that's something that we really do need to put foots behind, because we don't have anything representing our citizens that they can go to for services, like where they can stay, because most of the time treatment you get in the daytime and come home at night, that don't work. You have to go and spend some time. We just need to look at that a little bit deeper for mental health, because we need to provide more mental health services now than ever before, because they're really needed.
Yes.
Make sure we're using our money to the best of our ability.
there's a lot of need all the way around. The only problem is the money runs out way before we get to it. Mr. Clark, what would you say the main drivers of the budget are, the top 5?
You got public safety, education, and let's see, IT to a large extent. Our human services aspect, which would be age and social services, health department, are large budget drivers.
What percentage would you say that is of the budget? Would you be safe to say that this time you count public safety, education, IT, DSS, and emergency services, would you say that's 70% of our budget?
It's a nice chunk. I don't know if it's quite that much, but let's see if we look at.
Well, I've looked at it and
34.
I've added it up.
You'd be right, about 70, it would be 34, 444. Yeah, you'd be close to 70% just for public safety, human services, and education.
And just to make sure I understood you, did you give those in order of importance? So it's public safety is the most, and then next, public safety
is the
and
highest.
detention and together, and then comes the city schools at 19.82%.
City, county,
City and
and if you
county,
put the
Yeah, city and county.
community college in there too.
Then you got over, then you're over 20, so.
Okay.
I see what the budget is recommended over last year. We're going from 79 million to $86 million. Is that right?
About almost $6 million, 79 to, it would be 86 when you include money for revaluation, it would be over 86, yes.
When you say money for revaluation,
Setting aside money for the revaluation starting 2 years.
how much is that?
I estimate probably $800,000 a year has to be set aside, so we have to have it set aside within a couple years to be able to award the contract in the 3rd year so it can be completed in the 3rd and 4th year on our 4-year cycle. So estimate that could cost as much as $1.6 million, maybe a little more, a little less.
Just according to what type of reval you do, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, the reval, we did that because the Department of Revenue encouraged us to do so because they said our values were way off. Is that correct?
Yes, sales ratio dropped below their predetermined amount where they had to send, where general statute tell them they had to send out letters to the counties recommending or encouraging them to go ahead and do a reval. Now, they've been encouraging everybody to get on a 4-year cycle anyway, which I think by now most counties have gone to. I think of the counties around us, there are several that have changed their reval cycles last year. Anyway, and we were one of them. I think Duplin was supposed to have theirs this year, but they turned around and put theirs off a year because of some software issues, it seems like.
At the present time, 50 of the 100 counties are on a 4-year cycle. Of the remaining 50, only 30 remain on the 8-year cycle. So there is definitely a trend for the Department of Revenue going to the 4-year cycle.
There's the one around is Harnet's on a 4-year cycle.
Well-
Charleston looks like a 6, Pender's on a 7, Wayne's on a 6-year. And the rest are on 8 years. Duplin,
So you can break it up in increments. In other words, you can go from 4, instead of going 4 or 8, you can go in 6.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're required by statute to do one at least every 8 years.
Yeah.
Now, counties can adopt, the recommended Department of Revenue is 4-year cycles for everybody. But a county can adopt, 5, 6, 7, but the recommended is 4.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did a revalve in 2010 or 11.
Our last one, we did one in 11 and then in 19.
All right, and the one in 19 was neutral, correct? There was no increase.
Yeah, like 3 to 5%,
Yeah,
very
it
little.
was negligible.
So it was negligible. And so, but what happened, we went from 2011, you say,
2019,
to 2019.
11 to 19, and then to
Okay.
24.
So, we had 8 and 5's 13. We had 13, 14 years of a neutral tax appraisal value, correct?
Oh, yes, sir.
And so we had, during that time, were there any tax increases? I know since I've been on board, there was no tax.
I've been here 14 years. I think when we did in 11, I think we took the benefit, got 2 or 3 cents out of that one.
No, that was about a half cent.
About a half cent.
Yeah, that's why it was so neutral. We only got about a half cent.
I'm talking about the first one in 2011.
Well, I don't know about 11.
I was thinking that was 2 or 3 cents.
That might be. Yeah.
And then at one time, we did a 4.5 cent raise. The board, since I think you and Miss Sue have been on there.
That was in
I think-
14.
I think we dropped the 0.5%. And then if you go with what we've got here, you basically are getting a slight drop from 0.629 to 62.5.
So we've not had a tax increase since 14.
Probably, so. I mean, 13 to 14, yes.
From what I think I got some information. I think the one in 11 was neutral too, but I'd love to know that. So we went all this time with a neutral tax appraisal value, didn't increase, didn't decrease, and then after COVID hit, and I'm gonna say this one more time, it's unprecedented what everybody has seen. We've had such increases. I know some of the counties that had 75% increase. I know Brunswick County had 75% increase, but I heard of many others that had even more than that across the state. And of course, here we came in with this increase of about 42%. However, the tax rate has not changed at least since 2014.
Except to go down.
Except to go down.
Right, yes, sir.
So opposite of what we've been told, that we raised taxes, we have not raised taxes. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay. I just want to get that clear.
Not since I've been here.
There's been enough of misinformation out there on that. So here we are today with a perfect storm. And as we talked about in 22, that we had a $2.5 million shortfall that we ate. Then last year we had a shortfall of somewhere between $6 and $8 million. Is that correct, David?
Sure.
Last year we had a shortfall of $6 to $8 million, somewhere in that range.
For budget, what we had to budget in fund balance.
Right.
Was actually about 5 million, but we did budget 3
So-
million to go into salary line item to increase salaries, so.
So what did we end up spending in that pay study? I saw 3.8 million, is that correct?
Yes,
So the pay study came along and we spent $3.8 million in raises throughout the county, that's correct?
yes, sir.
Can I clarify one thing?
Sure.
That someone might misinterpret. 3.8 is what the salary's not what we paid for the pay study, what we had to expend.
What we had to spend
I didn't want
for
anyone to
the
misconstrue
increases,
that.
yeah, the pay study didn't cost that. What did the pay study cost?
$45,000, $6,000, something like that. About
Okay.
46,000.
And why would we go to an outside source to do that instead of doing it in-house?
They basically had the resources to get the study done more quickly than what we could have gotten it done. And they use, the tools they use are tools we really don't have to use. They had to, basically as part of the study, they showed us how to use those tools so that we could do these things later on, depending on how we wanted to do it. Now, we still don't have the resources to do a complete study of every position in every department in the time they could do it. But we could go through and do studies in certain areas and complete those if we wanted to do a pay study that didn't include the whole county at one time. In other words, if we wanted to do human services 1 year, public safety and things like that, those are things we probably could do with what we have now, but we still couldn't do a countywide study.
And we don't have the personnel.
No, sir.
Bear in mind, we were doing a little bit of that, and we got a lot of criticism for trying to do stuff in-house, that we had a built-in biases. And I think that was one of the reasons the board decided, well, let's go and get the outside independent review.
Right.
I believe that's the best decision that you have made as far as salaries, because when it was done in-house, employees didn't make nothing. I mean, that's for real.
But now, we've never done a study in-house.
I
We've
know
never
how
been
it
able
was
to.
done, but it's different now because the salaries have increased.
Well, I think we found out, Ms. Dillman, with the pay study, we learned that we had extenuating circumstances in some areas, but as a whole, we were within 1.6% of the average,
As a whole,
and that's all the surrounding county.
yes, sir.
And some of the counties were larger than us. That
Yeah.
was what I was gonna say.
So-
We were pretty close.
So the difference were hard to fill positions that everybody was experiencing. Is that correct?
It's still a problem.
And say
It
again?
is still a problem.
Still the problem.
Wow.
Such as
Social workers,
social work. What are we short in social workers now, roughly? 7?
7 social workers, 3 nurses. We're down 5 paramedics and 6 telecommunicators. Those same positions are still
But our salary,
recruited.
okay, but our salaries are on average with the surrounding counties.
We're staying comparable, yes, sir.
Okay.
If you're talking about social services, and I've got a handout I may hand out to you, or can give you, that Ms. Fields has provided me last week, and we've had a number of discussions. And I think she would be the first one to tell you is they are most appreciative of the salary increases that we've had. But when you get into child protective services and foster care, we are finding that we've got such new staff, and with the assignments that they have got, it is proportional, and we're having a lot of turnover. For example, she's got 9 positions on CPS assessments, and staff with 1 year or more experience, she's only got 2. So we're running into some shortfalls. She's also in this memo that I'm going to prepare you later is talking about caseloads that are recommended. And we are way short on people per caseload that is recommended. Don't know that we're asking for increases in people at this point in time, but we're pointing out that we've got a challenge. And we think that our turnover now may be more because of caseload assignments more so than it is on salaries. We think you've actually done a pretty good job of that. So when we're talking about all of the departments that have needs, and we recognize, we don't argue, Mr. McLean, with anybody that says they've got additional needs over what we can fund. I think the point that we went into the budget and what we're doing based on what the leadership has shared with us in the last several years is try to come up with something and at least be consistently right or consistently wrong, but it's better to be consistent than inconsistent. So we don't really debate with anybody that talks about an additional need. We just talk about putting it in the collective hat.
And the thing too, Medicaid expansion in operation now, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's an additional 6,000 cases? And has that had any effect on our inabilities to maintain staff, or are we?
Actually, with the maintenance staff, we've been able to get caseworkers hired, and they're much more stable than we are in our services section. They've worked overtime and been able to process and move through those applications. It's a struggle. They're steady working, but we've not experienced the turnover there that we have in services.
And of course, I'm privy, and the board is privy to some problems that occurred with some out-of-control people that has pushed people away, basically. Is that correct? Some of the personnel that you've had to deal with has had a lot to do with staff leaving, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Which is what you got to deal with. This is different. Anyone got any questions? I'm taking all the time here.
I just want to touch back on what you said earlier, and I know that we talked about the revalve got turned quickly, and I got pushed on that a couple of times, and people said it. I just think, and I want everybody to understand that, I think that we've done a great job on getting ahead of our surrounding counties and doing our revalve. I think that was a big plus for Sampson, not to be behind Cumberland and Harlan and Johnson. I think we were smart on that part. I just want to make sure that people understand that's part of why the revalve was going ahead and pushed it, so we would be out in front of a lot of other people.
Yes, sir.
The revalve that was completed for 2011, that was effective for the 11-12 fiscal year, the revenue neutral rate was calculated at that time to be 77 cents. The tax rate that was adopted for that budget was 79.5. So that was a 2.5 cent increase.
Ms. Lamb, I certainly think you're correct in that observation. Because anytime you do a reevaluation, do a study like we did, to get ahead of the other counties, it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. One thing that happened with the revalve, whenever we went from 14 to now, we had moderate increases in COLAs. It was 1-2%, and we were able to stay up with that as best possible. But then some of the cases that we had to adjust rates, such as with the fire departments, we had to adjust the rate for get the more money they wanted. Some of them were getting 6 cents and 7 cents. Is that correct? Can elaborate on that any at all?
As far as the fire departments, if we look at what we had originally recommended, there was only going to be 4 departments that would increase over the revenue neutral rate.
What I'm referring to is, say in the year 2016, 2017, the rates were set somewhere in the 6-7 cent, and they started increasing a little along. Is that correct?
We have had several that have increased a little along.
And we did that so that they would have the money at the bottom line, so to speak, that they needed to operate their department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So in lieu of tax appraisal values increasing, which would add more money in that kitty, we had to go in and add to the percent tax rate, the 10 cent that we have now. We worked our way up from 6 and 7 up to 10. Is that correct?
Yes.
But not everybody's at 10.
But not everybody's at 10 now.
Okay. That's what I said, 6 and 7.
We've only got, we've got let's see, what do we have? Tax rate, let's see what we had. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 9 that were less than 10.
Yeah. Well,
But most of them are 10, or we had gone to 10 over that time. Yes.
Yeah. And their costs have gone up
Yes,
exponentially.
they have.
And that's where we are today. These costs have gone up and up and up, and in every department. And our money has run out way before we get able to fulfill our needs, let alone our wants. So here we are today, looking at a budget that's got gone from $79 million to $86 million. And we've got some increases in departments. I'm looking at some that are getting 30 and 40% increases. And it's the main five that we were speaking about a while ago. But there again, we're trying to sustain the pay scale that is required. And that's what's got us to the position we're in. Like I said, we took $3.8 million to fund the pay study, and that's part of this $10 million we're short.
Yes, sir.
So you take roughly $4 million out of 10, so you got $6 million of increased
And then
cost.
You got $2 million that was ARPA money that we included last year, which brings that down to 4. And then we had at least $1 million where we've added in where you were required to because of increased rates in retirement.
Insurance.
And insurance.
Yeah, the insurance was something that increased. What was that value again? Do you have that?
$150 per position per month, full-time position per month for
The county
insurance.
the county is paying an additional, was it $1.9 million a year more?
I think it's 800,000.
800,000, I think that's what the number was as far as the 150 goes. And then we had, the other part was about 300,000 for the retirement rate increases from the state. And then about $1.3 million between those two items.
Is there any way we could kind of take each one of these individually and kind of go down the list? I mean, just to give us an overview of why we increased or didn't increase. And that's kind of a question I got in my brain that I'm looking at these increases, and let's say administration went up 33.7%, okay? Is that salaries? Is that because
There's two things primarily. One thing is we're taking care of the web page and the web maintenance, which is about $50,000 a year that we're not used to having. The other thing is on the administrative staff, we have over the last 2 years, we've added the GIS function, which has 3 people. We've not added people, but like one of those positions has come from the tax office that is now report under GIS, and then you've got regular salary increases that pretty much takes care of the rest of that.
And most of these will be related to the salaries will make up a big chunk of it. Human resources is basically the some component is salaries. The biggest part of their component is related to technology and programs for their department to be able to run more efficiently and be able to provide information to the employees. A lot of that, like $100,000+ of that increase is really related to those new programs and new computer programs and services.
some of them I can see are very self-explanatory. I mean, just like the courts, I know we've added some stuff over at the court deal that was no,
Yes, sir.
that wasn't our doing, is here it is, you're gonna do it.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
So I understand that part, but then it jumped down and, we go off of that from legal to, then the courts went up, board of election, then went to 102 on the rest of these. That was the question I had. Is there something special there that I'm missing?
So you're referring to the increase in net tax support?
Mm-hmm.
That's 102 basically because of the revenue drop there. You see it went from $411 to $374,000. That combined with the salary increases for the employees caused the net tax support to go up by 102%. From what I can tell, looking at revenues, it doesn't look like there's not a lot of land sales going, as many land sales is going on as there were.
Right.
So I think that's leveling off or dropping a little bit. So I think that's why that one's 102%.
Well, getting back to what I was referring to a while ago, 70% is going to be spent on public safety, education, IT, social services issues. That's $56 million. That leaves you 26 or 85 million. If you're looking any adjustments at all, where do you cut it? That's what I'm looking at. Where are we able to cut? We're telling the taxpayers you got to come up with more money. Or as we're planning right now, we're taking it out of our rainy day fund. Someday they're gonna have to figure a way to get this money. Getting back to what I was referring to a while ago, is $1,900. The county has increased contribution to employee benefits by more than $1,902 per employee. That equates to $1.1 million. That's gone up each and every year now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so these are the increases that we got. Not only salary, but benefits have gone up exponentially. It's out of control. We're not the only ones. Every county is dealing with this problem. Sampson County has. We have, according to Ed's figures, you've got 30,800 people paying taxes out of almost 60,000 people. So you got half the people not paying taxes for the other half.
But are receiving all the services.
Yeah, everybody's receiving the services, that's correct. So that puts us in a little different scenario than you say Cumberland County or Johnston County, some of the.
And relative to the 1.1 million, you don't have a lot of control over that.
No, we don't. But looking at the increases, where do we want to go? What do we want to do?
Is there any way we could look at this budget and figure out a place where we could maybe decrease some of the expenditures to maybe put it over in the line item of volunteer fire departments?
Now, as far as volunteer fire departments, the money the county appropriates to give to those has not changed. We give each fire department for each of the stations they run still gets the $6,900. That did not change. As far as putting more county money in, if you're talking about putting more county money in lieu of changing their tax rate, we've never done that before. The county money is just what the county puts in, and the district tax money is designed to help fund the remaining amount it takes to run the department. So changing the general fund is not going to change the tax rate for the fire departments.
So you're saying that the same 10% that they have been getting, they're getting it now, but they see it as a decrease. It's not, I don't know.
They see it as a decrease in the tax rate.
Right.
And we have what we calculated is we calculated the revenue neutral rate, which in their case, according to the sheet, is not only did we give them the money that was requested that they had been receiving, but it increased by $467,000 on what we proposed.
Now, talking about revenue neutral. Revenue neutral is not something we created. The state requires us to publish the revenue neutral. Is that correct?
Right. And I think the whole concept behind that was, quite frankly, we probably may have participated in some of that if it wasn't required. Because if your old rate was 82.5 and we proposed a 76-cent tax rate, for example, you could basically be getting a 14-cent increase and trying to advertise that you have reduced your tax rate. Well, you have. Well, the state come along and says, with all of this, we want to be transparent to the public. If you're going to take advantage of that, then you need to be clear and tell people what the revenue neutral rate is. And then if you have a tax that's beyond that, any way you look at it, that is a tax increase, whether you call it or not, whether it's for the fire departments or the supplemental city tax for the Clinton City School Board or the county.
The increases that the departments asked for, do we have that? Is that a number that you can give us that all the departments asked for?
In total, the departments with the school systems and everybody else asked for almost $93 million.
Say that again?
Almost $93 million.
Let the record show there have been some cuts already.
Yes.
Yes.
What is that percentage from 93 to 86? How much, what percentage was that?
5%. 4.5, 5.
It's all right.
So that's the requested compared to the recommended. Now, when you're looking at that, you'll see some departments might have ended up with more than they requested. That's basically because the cost of living increase, retirement, health insurance increases are not included in a department's requested budget. We generally add that in as part of the recommended budget.
Say that again?
The salary changes, you know, the increases in salary, the increases in retirement, increases in the health insurance, that's not included in requested, that's only included in recommended. So that would account for some of the difference in recommended and requested, where recommended is more than what was requested.
Economic development, 1,362,000.
They have got some loans and or some grants that is included in that on the revenue side, and you also got the incentive payments that they pay. So that figure is pretty inflated relative to what is actual day-to-day expenditures.
So we're not actually spending that much money?
No. Well, you are spending,
Not
it's just coming from...
It's not tax.
Right, it's
Support.
state grants,
Right.
120,000 or so in building reuse money, and I think $200,000+ in Golden Leaf grants that we expect to get.
So I see here that the city schools and the county schools and the community college has asked for a little over $8 million more
That sounds right.
Yes, sir.
than what we've given them.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And the reason we're not giving them all that is we don't have it.
Well, that would be one way.
That's one of the main reasons.
We have operated with the city and county schools on sort of a unofficial formula basis where we give them about 20% of our increases in revenue. Well, we didn't have really any increases this year other than what we projected for interest and sales tax and something else. Is where, because I think the increase that we gave them for operating was like $450,000 plus or minus.
And a lot of that, where you see the cut is more related to capital than anything else. And as far as capital funding, there is one of the articles of half-cent sales tax that's allocated to the county that we have to give the schools a certain percentage of. And that's historically been what we've given them for their annual capital, unless we were doing special projects and things like that. But that's generally the amount, and we split that up based on the number of kids. So county schools have 70 kids, they get 70%, and city schools will get the remaining 30.
If you take that a step further, if you're talking about the city and the county schools, see some of the lottery proceeds we're using for debt retirement, that if that were not in place, could be used to give the schools for capital. So they have, there's some challenges there, which goes back to your desire to pay off the debt, so you would have more money to work with.
Yeah, that was my goal, is to try to get a penny sales tax to offset that debt and cut back on what it was costing property tax, which would help for this increase in demand now. But we don't have that.
Well,
But we only voted for the opportunity to do that, and then of course we'd set hearings. But anyway, that was never came to fruition. So I didn't go up on taxes $8 million.
Well, so the other issue that comes into this, if you talk about, yes, we agree that the fire departments have a challenge. Everybody's got a challenge. But you take the Clinton City Schools, we're also back in their supplemental tax rate, I think, David, from what, 14.5 to 11.5?
Yes, sir, 3 cents
If
increase.
you look at some of the capital needs that they have, you could make a similar argument for not changing theirs to the revenue neutral rate. So our concern is we agree everybody's got a wide range of concerns, and we're not discounting anybody, not any fire department, city schools, county schools, everybody. What we have tried to do with this whole process, based on the direction I think I was getting our discussion, is try to be consistent with what you're doing across the board.
Well, right now, you're proposing about $8 to $10 million increase, but we're funding it through the rainy day fund.
Yes, sir.
And so fortunate that we have that fund, which has been built over the last 15 years, I guess.
Yes, sir.
And again, we've never seen a time that we've been faced with such an increase in values and cost of operation. I know my business has it. I was just looking at the sheriff's department, and detention center last year was roughly 15.3 million. This year they're looking at right at 19 million.
I think that is correct.
And you said a percentage of that is going to be salaries?
Yes, sir.
Is it $4 million? 3.5? Wouldn't be that much.
Let's see.
Is any of that on that budget on the sheriff's side as far as the new building, as far as putting any of that, the new system in that building at all? Is that being considered?
I'm sorry.
I know that some of the inventory that was stored at the old 911 center has to come to the new building, and also know it has to be in a controlled environment and all that. I know we're working on some grants to get that, but is any of that money included as what we put together.
No, because we got the money for the storage now. We don't have the money or anything set aside for the controlled environment for them yet.
Okay. And that's where we got to kind of work the new building that we're selling and making sure that I've been broke into before. My stuff is stored over there, and I want to make sure when I went back, God, it was in good shape. I know that citizens of Sampson County want to be that way. That was the reason I was asking. You talking about that money? I said, was that anything included?
Well, that money,
Some of that was requested, but we didn't include that in there because we haven't finished up the SCIF money yet. We need to be sure we exhausted all that before we went anywhere else with any money, because I think their increase in net tax support working out to about 3.8, almost 3.9, probably over $3.9 million for this year.
net tax support.
Right, which is property taxes. After the revenues they bring in is what property taxes.
After the revenue they bring in.
Yes, sir.
When you say they bring in, you're talking about all the money that they bring in, correct?
Yes, yes,
Not half of it, all of it.
right.
And you're just talking about the increase.
No, I'm talking about the total they bring in compared to, and this is the increase after you take that into account.
Okay.
So the detention center brings in money
Yes, sir.
and it comes into the general fund, but we take that money and put it right back in addition to.
The taxable.
Are we looking at right at 19 million more dollars in addition to what they brought in? Is that what they asked for?
The net tax support after the money they bring in is about $15.3 million.
That was for this year.
No, that's for 24, 25. For the year we're in now, it's about 11.4 million.
Okay.
What was that figure again for this year? Net income?
After the net tax support, after that's about $15.3 million. And that's compared to about 11.4 million last year.
So am I looking at this correct? They're looking at, the sheriff's department looking at 30% increase, 30.7% and the 43.6 for the detention.
Yes, sir.
They want that increase this year?
That's what's
For the
been
coming
That's
budget.
what's been recommended.
They actually asked for more than that now.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I think it was like 19 million was the original request for the two.
That's what I was saying. So they actually get all the money they bring in.
All the money they bring in is spent in
And
their
15
department.
million.
Yes, all that money's spent in that department.
I could swear I saw that they didn't get it.
I have seen that many times.
Looking at emergency medical services, they've increased. Are we looking at $1 million increase there?
Yes, sir, $1,081,159.
And is that, part of that gonna be salary increases?
Salaries, I think, the salaries, overtime, fringes, and the cost of, capital, mainly the cost of ambulances is sky high. They've
Yep.
gone up in every, about like the fire trucks and what they've gone up. They don't cost as much, but
So-
what they've gone up to more.
Okay, so what part of that would be salaries?
Let's see, I can tell. The salary increases amount to about $1.8 billion. No, not $1.8 billion, $800,000.
Yeah,
It
okay.
had $1 million to it, it's about $800,000.
So that's almost all of the increase.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The vehicles that the sheriff has requested is in this number as well.
Yes, they are. Yes.
What was that?
The vehicles that the sheriff's department
There's a
requested.
total of 16 vehicles. And since Chrysler or Dodge is not making cars next year, we're having to buy the Durango police package SUV, which costs a little more. It costs a lot more to outfit.
What are we looking at in cost of 16 vehicles, or how much per vehicle? Roughly.
That's $755,000 for the vehicles. And about $11,000 each to equip them, since we can't transfer equipment from cars to SUVs.
16 of them at 11,000, so that's
Just about, yeah.
about 160, 70,000.
Yeah.
Is there a plan switching out of vehicles? Do we do so many each year? Is there a process that they do, or is it just a need basis?
It's basically, we plan to do about 15 a year,
How
unless
many-
we have
how many-
circumstances.
How many patrol cars do we have in total? Do you have that?
I'm trying to think, I don't know how many spares, let's see if I've got it in here.
So you're talking about right at $1 million worth of vehicles?
Oh, yes, yes. Especially since the prices have gone up, yes, sir.
Anyone have any other questions?
I was just curious, what is the average lifespan of one of the cars?
About 3 to 5 years or something like that, because they put a lot of miles on them every day. So we don't get that many years out of them.
Sometimes if you've got low repairs, they will keep them over. Generally, they start looking at about 140, 145,000 miles for replacement. Figuring even then, you're probably close to 200 by the time you actually replace that car.
That's respectable.
Plus or minus, because you can get into repairs that will take one off the road sooner, and sometimes you can get a little bit more off, so.
Okay.
What's the purpose, can anybody tell me, of a vehicle running all day long, burning gas? What's the purpose of that? I know I can't run mine all day. I won't be going nowhere.
That's a good question. I've always wondered that myself. I know a diesel's a little different, but the gasoline cars,
Not unless you're thinking about getting back in it at a reasonable time, but if you know you're gonna be in a place all day long and you leave it running, that don't make sense. It's got time to crank back up. That's a saver right there.
Alan, you got any questions?
I was kind of reading through a few things, and comparing. I might have some questions later, but
Sue? Mr. Goff?
I got some notes I need to ask later.
Okay. Letha, you got any other, you're waiting to hear about the cars
Yeah,
running
but
around?
I have some discussion I want to lead to.
to you on the car, I relate it back to some things we do at my office. When we crank our vehicles, we got all the computer stuff in them. If we cut them off with GPS and stuff, we lose. And it takes time to bring that back up. So, and maybe in their defense a little bit there, those cars have to stay on for the computer systems and the GPS and all that stuff, because it would be, if I'm going to help someone and I gotta wait for this to come up, that would be my thinking, just because what I know at the technology I use at my location. We don't, once we crank our systems up in our trucks, we never cut them off. We run them all day.
Are they really police officers?
Because you shut it off, you lose everything on that field job that you're on or wherever. So same thing with the new tractors and stuff we got. When we're running these high-dollar tractors, and it works the same way.
But one of the main reasons is police officers gotta be in a go mode.
True.
That
Yeah, but
makes
you
a
know you're
difference.
not going nowhere in 8 hours. I mean, That's just a question. I don't know.
That's
Can't
circumstances,
count.
but they're mostly in a go mode. That's what it is.
Just food for thought. When you're asking. I know it's a small item, but I know we've got a slight increase in aging, and I've had some concerns of people asking me about libraries. Why are we still doing libraries? Why do we have libraries? I said, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna be the first one to admit, I'm probably sticking my head in a big noose right now, and I don't mean to be, but the question's been thrown at me. You budget for libraries. How many people use libraries now? I said, I don't know. I don't, so I don't know. I'm not gonna sit there and tell somebody that I do when I don't. Garland, for one, I just have to run up with the mayor down there, and she said something about the situation that they were having it's an expense to the town, and that they didn't want to incur that expense, but they understood some of the needs. Then here come the agent, same question, and I'm all about aging, because my mom's in a detention center. Not detention. She probably might be. She might be. I don't know what she's doing down there. But she's in yeah, she might be. She thinks she runs the place down there at Hope Mills, but anyway, I love my older people. Don't get me wrong, especially if I'm getting there fast.
We appreciate it.
I'm just saying, those are things that they're changing.
Yes.
I want to be sure we're changing with it, as far as the county and the need for what our county and what benefits the libraries, that benefits our aging. I just think there's things that they're small, but they need the attention, as so does the sheriff department and the others do too.
What kind of things I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, one question was, does anyone get any benefit out of the library? The thing that I run into, the ones that Garland said, that people were going down there and they were using the Wi-Fi and they're having to cut it off at night. And they had a lot of people who were just hanging out there they didn't want there. I understand that. We found out, I had one guy in my office was coming by and he would pull in at my office and park in the yard. The rascal had it hooked onto my Wi-Fi. So I understand that, but you got that, and I'm wondering how many meals we're doing for our aging, and people just don't gotta do that stuff anymore like they used to. And I'm sorry, but I'm being realistic, and that's, sometimes that hurts in some situations, but those are little things, but they need our attention. They don't just need to be brushed to the side and us not give the attention it needs to have, as far as if it's something we can make better, or we can find a way that it benefits the county more than what we're doing.
Are you looking at doing away with the?
Didn't say nothing about doing away.
I'm just
I just
asking.
said that we need to. I think it needs. The smaller things on our budget needs attention as big as the big thing.
You saying they need increases?
No,
No?
I
Okay.
said attention that we take it seriously when we're looking at it, and we come together as a group when we're making the decisions to do things for these smaller offices as far as.
Are you trying to say they need to be managed differently? Maybe
I just think
offer
if it
different
may need
services?
some different managing, not to say that we're got, it's wrong, we need some outside thinking, some things that brings it out to light, that we're not just doing the same thing over and over, because that's what we've always done. I'm not a always done person.
You're not a Baptist.
Do I?
You're not a Baptist?
No, I mean, I don't know if there's a way of, I don't know, and I got some good people that I know that's on the library board and stuff, and I know that they're good people, and some people may use the library, it's just something I don't use, and I'm trying to bring me to more light, I guess, as much as anybody.
In the case of the libraries, over the course of the last few years, we have adjusted the hours, certainly in most of the outlying libraries, in order to try to minimize the cost of personnel, which is one of our big costs. In the case of Garland, that probably is the least used library in the system that we've got. But you could also make the argument that the people that use the library in Garland probably need the used
See, that's what I'm
library
saying.
as much as anything. Several years ago, we actually had a discussion, did we need to close some of these outlying libraries? And I think at the end of the day, what was concluded, or what the board concluded, was that, for example, in the case of Garland, the benefits that we receive, even though it costs something, is probably worth more than the cost of closing. But yes, it's legitimate. The one thing in all of these libraries, and I think we have libraries in Garland, Roseboro, and Newton Grove, the entities own the facilities and basically will keep up, and we provide the books, staff, and I think, do we pay the utilities for those, David, or do the individual locations? I do not remember, but
We probably pay them, yeah.
it's sort of a shared cost. From the standpoint of the libraries, they have actually been trying to change. For example, they're tied in, what is the system that we now use where we can get books from anywhere?
Cardinal.
The Cardinal system is something that we've started participating in. So basically, somebody that is using our library system, they basically can access materials that's probably available to the greater population of the state. It may take them a week to get it, but we can do that. They have emphasized youth programs, these summer reading programs where people bring their children into the library. They've also done more of the outreach programs where they try to work in the schools. So do we need to evolve more? Probably, but I do think there's a considerable effort on the standpoint of the library to try to accommodate the public as much as possible. If we then begin to look at that, you'll have to make a decision. If you look at the dollars spending and the values, do we want to make changes? In the case of Agent, I don't know that I have a lot of numbers off the top of my head, but what I can tell you is their monies or grant monies have changed some in the last several years, and it has caused an increasing cost on our side.
And the reason I know that is somebody threw me on the aging board. And so I feel like I'm getting some education on that side, which is good. I think it's been a very good for me. And some of the other questions I've been thrown at, like I didn't know some of the stuff, and I appreciate you taking the time to share that with us, because I just think everything, I mean, if it's on here and we're having to pay for it, it needs our attention. That's just, I guess, what I'm trying to bring out.
Yes, without question. And everything on there has got a constituency of somebody, whether it be the Department of Social Service or Economic Development or the library. I think probably the only group in here that may not have a constituency is I don't know anybody who wants to keep the tax office. But other than that, I think everybody's got every department and every entity's got a pretty
I would like to
strong
keep the tax department if I can keep the revenue.
Yes. And for the record, it's
I'll share.
dementia center, not detention.
Do not tell your mother you said that.
Are you
I've
sure?
been reading this too, but I don't know.
Mr. McLean, I do want to make a comment as far as libraries and senior citizens buildings. probably the people that's complaining, they're not involved. And some people think they won't never get old, but you ask the old people, are they getting too many services? Are we spending too much money on them? And they got to answer for it. No, you're not. And if you look at it, you're not, because these are the people that have paved the way for us to be here. These are the people that we should be here, because they can't help themselves. We're a county of helping people, and that's what we do, offer services. So just because they're old and some of them have dementia, don't mean we should throw them out in the nest. They're still of value. They were of value one day. They paid taxes, and they deserve our best. I believe they deserve, well, not they, we deserve our best. Because I know one day, I don't want it to happen, but one day, that same thing could happen to me. And I would hate for somebody to look over there and say, well, they don't need that. They don't know what they're gonna do with it, no how. Because that's not true. Those people that are saying that need to go to that home. If they go to a home or visit a senior site, they'll never be the same. Never be the same again, because it's reality. And the library, you know, when we're in communities like Garland, Harold, Ivanhoe, if you close up what we got, we won't have nothing. So the library is a lifeline to the people in the smaller communities. Now, if you're living in Roseboro or Clinton or somewhere, you got plenty of other stuff you can choose from. But what do you have to choose in Ivanhoe, Harold, Waycroft? There's not a whole lot to choose from. So if you got a library, at least you can say, well, we have a library. So, in my opinion, we don't need to be closing nothing. We need to be finding ways that we can offer some more things to our citizens and our people. So if we get the mindset that all we want to do is close up something because nobody ain't using it, then that's not growth. And it's all about growth. And we know that we're living in a time now that if you go back to 1980, you'll be back there by yourself, because nobody's going back that way. So it's a time that we need to think more, be concerned more, and love more. That's my motto. We got to learn to love more, because it's not about me, and that's what we got to get out of us. It's not about me. It's about somebody else. Not about me, because I may never have to go to the nursing home, but I'm thinking about somebody that is. You know, and that's what we all need to, that's what a good servant is. You know, and that's what this job is being a servant. And if you're not willing to do that, to serve somebody else, then what's the purpose? So I just can't see that happening.
Thank you. 2 years ago, we were 2.5 million short. Last year, we were short 5-point-something million. This year, we're at 10 million. We're going the wrong way. It's going to have to be adjustment somewhere. And we've got, with this budget, we've got a year to do it, or you have a year to do it. And you've got some hard decisions to make. And you've got to, as was pointed out last year in the budget review from Mr. Causey, was we could look at redefining government, and that may be some of it. And the property tax issue is a concern, has been a concern, and always will be, especially whenever you've got 400 people in this county paying 31% of the property taxes. And that's a fact. I pulled that up. Mr. Johnson pulled me the numbers, and I looked at it, tallied it up. You can only go to a well so long before it runs out. And that's where we are. You're gonna have to find some method to support the government that you got. I've been working on this for some time, had an opportunity to bring something to the table, and of course, that's not gonna happen, so you need to be considering that. All right, do we got any more discussion that we want to do today? Or you want to take this home and digest it?
I really think we need to digest this, and I agree. With everything going up, we're gonna have to increase our minds of wisdom, how we're gonna adjust and what we're gonna adjust. And I think that's where we need to sit down and look at this overall. Not fast decision, but a concrete decision on how we're gonna do it. Because if this happened every year, which it lasts 2 years, and this is a big year for us, so for increase, so we really do have to come together on decision making.
Thank you. Yeah, this didn't happen overnight. We've been projecting this the last 3 budget sessions.
It's gonna have to be a huge balancing act. Like you said, the property tax owners, we owe it to them to give it our best shot to
Yes.
not put everything on their backs. I like the idea of going to fee-based to get revenue from people that are using the service and not putting any skin in the game. That will be a fair way to
Yes.
ease the burden on the taxpayers.
That's right.
But we have to consider everything. We're a poor county. There's not a lot of money. We've got huge expenses that we have to meet that are mandated. So there's very little discretionary income, and we've just got to do the best we can with what we have.
I like to say poor, I like to say rural county. We're a very rural county.
Well-
And that in itself brings in a lot of challenges, but to stay rural is not gonna be cheap.
Yeah.
To stay rural comes at a cost, y'all. I'm sorry, it just does. We won't stay rural and stay kinda like we are. It's gonna cost a little bit somewhere, so we're gonna have to figure it out.
Well, as this nation grows in population, you've got more people using the services than are paying for it. And this happening here today in Sampson County. Sampson County is an agricultural county. The taxes on that land is capped at $1,200 an acre. Doesn't matter what revals you do, it's never going up. The farmers are probably the most affected by this. You know, they're gambling every year trying to put a crop in the ground, praying that it'll grow. And they're getting less and less money. I know the case I read about blueberries coming in from another country, and it doesn't justify they even harvest their blueberries. And so that's revenue that's lost by them. It's not long. They can't pay the property taxes, even on $1,200 an acre. It's a vicious cycle that we're in. And it's not going to change. It's going to get worse. Well, it's going to change. It's going to get worse. It's not going to stay the same. And it's an adjustment that's going to have to be made, and it's coming. Any other, we need to set a time?
I'll offer you a couple of points
Okay.
that may not be politically correct. I'll provide them anyway. In 2022, well, let me back up. If I'm not mistaken, or thereabouts, David, help me if I remember, the year that we actually increased the taxes 4.5 cents, we actually started in September and had budget meetings every month to go through the different departments to let the commissioners decide what they wanted to keep or not keep, or how they wanted to progress. We went through basically a year of meetings and did not get any real substantive suggestions on what to do to adjust government. I think as it turned out, we recommended a 9-cent tax increase, and ultimately we got approval for 4.5. for whatever it is. That's just what it is. If you can say a budget doesn't get approved, then there is some responsibility of management what they progress. When we started this year, we clearly understood that in 2022, we recommended a tax increase that was overwhelmingly discounted by the Board of Commissioners as near as I could determine by the population of Sampson County. And since then, I have not had anybody say, rah, good luck with getting a tax increase. So going into this year, we knew that there was not a lot of heart for a tax increase by anybody. At least we didn't have it. The disadvantage was we looked at last year's audit and our certain finances, and the audit indicated you had $37 million in the general fund. $24 million of it was unassigned. So we basically looked at it and says if the commissioners want to have a year where we're on an even basis, we can expend 10 and still be in good shape. Now, I don't think you'll have the luxury to go in there for 10 next year, but it does give us the opportunity to then, once you decide on this budget, is that the budget process needs to start right away for the next year. But because to come in and adjust this like you want it, I question whether you're gonna have time to do everything that you would like to do. It comes down to what you would need to do. But we were trying to set the stage to give you something that was workable, and then set the stage when basically the way we wrote the message was make sure everybody understood we won't have to have substantive discussions of what the interest of the people. And we don't do a lot of speaking, but we do a lot of listening at the board meetings. And it's always interesting. You got groups advocating for something, and then other groups advocating not to do. So somewhere in there has got to be the happy medium. And I will tell you, there is no budget that is prepared by anybody cannot be improved upon. So for us to sit and say, you need to approve this and that, we're not suggesting that in any. But we do think we've given you a good basis for beginning to decide what you want to do. That will be the first step, and the second step is what we then decide that we'll do for the next year's budget.
One point I'll make too, I was talking to a farmer, I've talked to a number of them, where they talked to me, I should say. He said his grandfather farmed the land he's on and paid taxes. His father farmed it, paid taxes. Says he's farmed it, paid taxes. At some point, I think I paid enough taxes. And that's the case, you know. It's getting harder and harder to make it in the farming community, and that's what we have to deal with. One of the issues to deal with too is poultry and pork industry is being hit. There are contracts being not offered to farmers. That farm goes to a zero value. That's less income coming in. How much of that will follow through in the future, I have no idea. But times are changing, and there'll be some kind of adjustments to be made. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck. This will be my last one to worry with.
As you decide what you're going to do next, David and I would like to share with you that from the time you have your last work session, we would like to have a week to be able to get the budget ordinance done, and we would like for that to be done by 6:30. Local Government Commission does not talk nice to us if we end up with an interim budget.
So we need to have this approved by what date?
June 30.
June 30.
So you need a week prior to June 30th?
Yes.
So that we got next week.
Well, we'd like for you to do it a few days earlier than that. You never know what glitch comes in that somebody's got to work out. We have had a budget on this when it was voted down. So it sent us back down to the drawing board.
Right. I can meet Thursday of this week
The 13th.
or Friday.
I can't do Friday, but I can do Thursday.
Thursday.
I can do Thursday.
Thursday. Lisa?
Check it. Yeah.
Lisa can you?
I'm good.
All right.
What time?
So you want to do Thursday at 10?
Sounds good.
Works for me.
Do you want us to prepare lunch?
Uh-oh, what are you suggesting? It's gonna be lengthy?
No, that's your determination on that.
No. I don't know. What do y'all want to do? A light lunch?
Since we don't know anything, it might be midnight.
All right. A light lunch?
We have been here to midnight.
I know.
All right, we'll be prepared to hammer it out.
Be good.
All right, so I'll take a motion to recess to reconvene on Thursday.
So moved.
Move second.
Got a second, all in favor? Recess.